All right, welcome back to another episode of Playing Through. I got my friend Tyler here, and Tyler is the creator of Greencrest Club in Utah, and we're going to get into a little bit about why he's here and why I believe that what he's doing is very unique and a niche in a field that we're fully supportive of, and you capture all of my interest with golf and therapy, and so. I want to have you have a chance to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Greencrest.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on, Matt. I'm excited for this conversation. So, a little bit about me and about Greencrest. I've been a therapist now for about 2.5 years. I'm an associate marriage and family therapist, an associate clinical mental health counselor. Um, all that to say, I see it all basically. I work with couples and relationships, and I work with individuals, with depression, anxiety, OCD, really anything mental health related. The unique thing about me and my practice, and the reason I'm here, is I started Greencrest last year, and basically the gist of it is I now am running my therapy sessions in a golf simulator. So, client shows up, we play around or hits balls on the range, and we talk about whatever is on their mind and work through a totally typical therapy session, just do it in a different environment.
And what got you started in therapy? What was kind of like, was there a life event, or what drew you into this field?
Yeah, I think it was a lot of things. Looking back, I can't pinpoint one exactly. I think ultimately it came to be just that I saw a lot of individual suffering in the world. There's a lot of really hard lives that people are living out there, um, and I feel a great purpose when I can walk alongside these people for an hour a week is really what therapy is. But that connection piece and that support, I think, can be really powerful. So that individual suffering, as well as my love for and high value in the family system, husband, wife, children. I think that the importance of the family just cannot be overstated, and I wish for everyone to enjoy a healthy family life.
Yeah, and I respect that. I think it's especially, from a first responder's point of view, that's usually the first thing to go, right? Is the household, and then everything else just kind of withers with it. And, from traumatic events to different things that you're going through personally in life, and then, to throw a marriage and kids on top of it, it's pretty overwhelming. How are you reaching out to clients? How are clients finding you? What's kind of some of those methods that you're using right now?
Yeah, I mean, up until just recently, it's been all organic social media. I started on TikTok, got onto Instagram, and have received a lot of support. It's been amazing. I'm really, first of all, just appreciative of the people embracing this idea. I worried initially a little bit about what people would think. It almost sounds like a joke. You're doing therapy in a golf simulator, but once you really think about it for just half a second, it makes a lot of sense. And so I'm really happy to see that landing with people. They recognize the need to talk with somebody in a safe and comfortable space. So
So let's
yeah,
let's break that
it's
let's
been
break
wonderful.
that down then. Let's go. So your space is completely unique from the traditional. When people think of therapy, they think of sitting on a couch, a therapist sitting across from them in a chair with a clipboard, taking notes and doing their thing. But what you're offering is completely unique because your office is a golf simulator. And so take us through kind of the design of that and what your thought process was, a little bit more deeper than what we've touched on, but and how people are reacting to that.
Yeah, I mean, to give you an idea of the setup, it's exactly what you would think a golf simulator is. I used a TrackMan simulator, so we've got the full setup. We've got multiple screens over on one side, and the projector screen obviously on the front. Um, and really, we're playing golf in these sessions. You know, people come in and, like I said, we start off typically just on the range, and you know, I get to know you, what you got going on in life, what kind of goals you have, what you're wanting to address. We can stay on the range the whole time. Clients just hit balls. We can jump over to a course. You know, I was playing Pebble Beach with somebody just last week, right? And sometimes I hop on and play with them. We do a scramble. Not all the time. I leave that, of course, up to the client. Some people are just more comfortable playing together. Sometimes I'm just kind of sitting in the chair having a natural conversation as they're doing whatever they want on the simulator. They can play a full round. I had one guy just this week, he played a full 18 holes in our hour session. It was awesome. So really, that's what it looks like. It's a golf simulator, and it's a therapist. Put the two together, and yeah, that's where the magic happens.
And from your perspective, are you seeing guys open up a little bit more because of it? Is it a little awkward? Is it like what's some of the feedback that you're getting outside of, the some of the guys are just coming in and playing a full round? What's the general feel?
Yeah, the number one piece of feedback I get from my clients is typically along the lines of, man, I have not opened up like that in who knows how long. That's repeatedly the statement that's made by the clients following a session. And I had expected that to a degree, because I know the research shows men open up and engage more comfortably in conversation when there's a shared activity, and literally speaking, when we're standing side by side instead of face to face. There's research out there on this. So I expected that to some degree. Like, yeah, this felt a lot more natural and comfortable, but it has exceeded my expectations in that way. Of men are like, man, this is a complete game changer. I have come in here and talked about things I never would consider talking about, or just the amount that I opened up in here. They're surprised at. So that's repeatedly the feedback I get, that was the whole idea of this, right? It's to make therapy more comfortable, more accessible, and more effective for men who just wouldn't be comfortable opening up, sitting in a stale office face to face.
Well, and as we've talked about before, that's kind of my whole philosophy behind playing through, right? Is to use your time wisely on the golf course. And I would love if you could share with me later just kind of some of that research so I could read it. I'd love to read it, because I haven't researched anything. I just go based off of what I know, right, personally and biasly.
Right.
And I know that I've had some phenomenal conversations on the golf course, and it's been life giving. And I've gone deeper there than I have in a therapy session for sure, because it's more relaxed. Because, like you said, you're sharing an activity, and there's a little bit the ability to let your guard down a little bit is a safer space, because both of you guys could be doing well or failing on the course together, or one could be lifting the other one up, and it becomes more than a game at that point. It becomes therapy. And so when you talk about social media being your platform of reaching people, it was a professional baseball player that pointed me in your direction. He sent me one of your clips, and that's how we met.
That's right.
And
Uh-huh.
it's one of those things, though, man. It's like it comes back to the fact of when I get these athletes out on the course and other guys, it's like, you have that common connection now. Whereas you have a big leaguer that's out on the field in these high tense pressure games, but then you're on the same tee box as them the next moment, and it's crazy because it's humbling, and anybody can do anything. And I think what you're doing is admirable, because you're thinking outside of the box, and you're allowing therapy to look different for people that need therapy to look different, because not everybody can succumb to the environment of therapy and open up, because it's pretty intimidating or daunting, and whatever adjective you want to put in there. And so I commend you for that. What do you find that most people misinterpret or misdefine therapy as, and then when they come to you, are they they're kind of changing their paradigm on that a little bit.
Yeah. Um, I mean, first of all, thank you for sharing your thoughts here on the model and your experience too, because we see it, right? It just that's how it goes. You don't need to be a psychologist to recognize conversations happen when there's an activity and when we're on the same team, right? Um, I think, yeah. To your point, what are some misconceptions about therapy? Um, I I have seen. I was going to say I hope to, you know, be able to say this, but truly I have seen people come in, and the belief that gets changed is, I don't think therapy can actually do anything. A lot of people have that belief. I understand that. I get that. There's misconceptions out there about, why don't you just go and go talk to your barber for an hour, or go talk to the bartender, or whoever it is, right? And there's some value in that, absolutely. But I think to really sit down and talk with a professional who understands human behavior, who understands the brain, who understands communication patterns, things like that, the amount of value that you get from that to take away and to take into your life, starting right then, and to implement throughout the next week, that is really where the power comes, right? There's definitely value in just going out and hitting some balls with a buddy and talking. That's wonderful. I wish more people did that. And then adding therapy is just adding it's adding to that, where you're getting professional clinical counseling, right? And it's not always just advice, but it's just counseling of connecting with people, validating what they're going through, and then giving them, small education pieces, or small tips, things to try out that have been studied and tested and proven effective. So I think number one, and especially with men, we see that a lot, where the belief is, I don't really know what therapy can offer me. And that belief then is proven false, or changed, is adapted
Yeah.
to, all right, there's something here.
So we've identified the how, right, of sharing an activity, bringing golf or something into this mix. Because I think more therapists should jump on the bandwagon with you. And I don't know, it's not easy, I understand that, but finding more ways to bring activity into what they're doing, whether it be, pickleball, or I don't know, I'm just throwing things out there, but it's just so cool to again see you think outside of the box on this. But since we're talking about men in this, what are some ways, and how much do you think men's mental health has been shaped by their childhood, and this notion of just man up, or be tough? What's Are you seeing a correlation with that, and guys not really reaching out for help right now?
Yeah, and again, there's some research on this. It's been studied that men oftentimes seek help later than would have been best. um, we kind of put our heads down and push through uh, for oftentimes extended periods of time, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think the quicker we can realize, the earlier on we can realize, all right, this might be a good time to bring somebody in, the better off we're going to be, the better man that we're going to be, truthfully. It's the men that feel like they've got everything put together that, truthfully, under the surface, just don't.
Do
So
you
it's
think
really, yeah.
do you think men think that they truly have it put together, or do you think that are we lose ourselves in the facade that we have it put together, like we're supposed to, and so whether we believe it or not, we have to act like we do? Do you think that's more true, or do you think that does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, because I think there is that just inherent desire in us to have what it takes, basically.
Yeah.
And we try to prove that, we try to show that. And I think even if, to your point, even if we know, or in the back of my mind, maybe we know there's some real problems coming up, we push through it. Yeah, we put up that facade, we build that wall, and that's really where that's really where a lot of problems come from. Actually, that building that wall to present, as healthy, as masculine, as tough, that more often than not prevents people from ever connecting, prevents people from really coming in and being there with us. And I would say that's a pretty common issue that we see.
What are some ways that you encourage men to come, and whether it's with you or somebody else, to open up to a little bit of therapy and at least just give it a shot, in that perspective?
Yeah, I mean, if there's something to be said here where I believe therapy should play a role in specific times, in specific phases of your life. It it's not meant to be a constant thing. I think in every it's not. I believe it's not true that therapy should be a part of everyone's life at all times. There's a certain role that it plays. That the therapist comes alongside you, supports you, encourages you, teaches you, helps you, and then you grow on your own. You practice those things, you develop. So I think in a way to broadcast that message to the world, I think is helpful, especially to help with that barrier of starting therapy. Some people think, well, as soon as I start therapy, then I'm just going to be dependent on that for forever, or I'm never going to be able to stop. My therapist is just going to keep making me meet with him every week for the rest of my life. And I personally, as a therapist, just don't see that as the way it's supposed to be. So I think really to get started, first of all, I mean, there's never an issue that you can bring to a therapist that they're going to be judgmental about. Well, I hope so. I'm speaking, I guess, for myself. There's so many different stories and situations and cases that I've heard that I just understand that life is hard. I get it, right? Whatever you say to me, I care deeply about it, but I'm not judging at all. It's your life, and I feel for you, but that's how it is, and let's do something about it, right? So first, there's no judgment at all, and really, therapy is meant to just be a support for you when needed, and it's not going to tie you down or have you be dependent on it the rest of your life.
Yeah. What is your perspective on what is, like, a normal amount of stress for a guy, and then at what point is that stress and that, those feelings kind of at the point where they should seek out a therapist or talk to somebody and just kind of ask around and hey, is this normal? Is this, are there certain levels that you're seeing as far as, whether it be anger, anxiety, any of those equations?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's really important to be able to recognize as a man, just as anybody going through life. When is my check engine light going on? When do I need to slow down? When is my gas tank, going up to empty? I would say with stress specifically, that's a big one. Because we all have stress. We all have healthy levels of stress or unhealthy levels of stress. I think to really take a look inside yourself and a look at your relationships and how you're presenting with people in your life, really take a look and examine, am I acting out in ways that are not normal for me? Or am I acting out in ways that I'm not happy about? Am I having side effects of this stress? Am I sleeping poorly? Is my appetite changing? Um, am I isolating? That's a huge one. Am I pulling away from people? Am I, not interested in being social or connecting with people? And again, some parts of that's normal every once in a while, here and then. But if that's consistently happening, that tends to be a good warning sign that might be time to reach out.
Yeah. And with guys with kids, and I'll get a little personal here because this one hits home for me. I have three kids, a boy and two girls. And I envision raising my kids similar, but not the same because each kid is different, right? And so for me with my son, it's a little harder for me to connect sometimes because he's actually more of the emotional out of the three. His EQ is very, very high, and mine is very, very low. And I look at, you know, certain things that we get into little tips about or whatever's going on, and it's more of like, just yesterday I had to tell him like, hey, dude, like it. I see that you have the EQ. Mom points it out. Like I'm learning like how to deal with this a little bit better. But for us guys that are not high on the EQ level and raising young men, because we're not raising boys, we're raising young men, no matter what age they are. Um, do you have a piece of advice, or are you seeing similarities with guys like? Because I already asked this in a previous question of like, well, you got to be tougher. Like there's a balance there, and I felt that in the conversation last night because I'm like, okay, I'm obviously wrong here on a little bit of this stuff, but at the same time, I do need you to have thicker skin. Boys are a little harder on each other at school, and there's a lot of the bullying or making fun of comes from them not being self-confident as well, and so they're putting you down in order to do that. But from a parent standpoint, especially a dad, what are some things that you're seeing with your patients or just men in general that are raising young men? How do we kind of connect with that EQ side a little bit more? How do we push through on the parenting side of that?
Yeah, I'll give you one thing. I'm just gonna turn. I love the question because that really hits the nail on the head when it comes to just general trends that we see in men and young men. I'll give you a very practical one to work on. Go and Google, right? And this is to all the listeners. Google feelings wheel, and you'll see a bunch of images come up with it's kind of a circle with different rings on it, and there's dozens of words, maybe 100 words. They're all feeling words. They're emotions. It's I'm feeling confused, insecure, inferior, worthless, mad, aggressive, disappointed, guilty, powerless. This is one of the greatest tools I think that's available for men, for parents, for raising children, for therapists, because it gets at the foundation. If we can recognize what we're feeling and we can communicate that to someone, we're going to be so much better equipped to then make appropriate decisions of how to move forward from that or just how to navigate that situation. I think
Uh,
for us, yeah, go ahead.
well, I'm just looking at this wheel and it's pretty crazy. Like
Yeah.
the I'm guessing the inner circle is the bigger feeling, right? And
Mm-hmm.
as it comes out, it's more of the actions and all of that kind
You
of
get more
stuff.
specific kind of as you go out. Yeah.
Okay. Dang. All right. So yeah, the feelings wheel.
It's a good tool.
I
Because
just saved it.
really, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, reference that. Because really, especially as men, we we learn about and become comfortable with maybe like four emotions. We know happy, sad, angry, and scared, maybe, right?
Okay.
And it's difficult to kind of orient ourselves in an emotional world. I mean, each of us experience emotions constantly. They're there, and so to navigate a very nuanced, very intricate, complex emotional world with just four kind of landmarks. I know
Yeah.
happy's over there, sad's over there, angry's over there, fearful's over there. It it's just not gonna lend itself very well to like effectively behaving or navigating different situations. We, even if it's, we're feeling fragile or feeling remorseful and we're not familiar with that, it may present itself as anger. And then we go and we tell our wife, and I'm just so angry, I'm so frustrated. Where do we go from there, right? We're missing the mark in a way. We're we're aiming at a target that's actually not uh, where that's not the real target.
Right.
Um, so I think to just be able to practice this and recognize, specifically, what am I experiencing, that gives a lot of clarity.
Love that. What is your one piece of advice that you've received, whether in life or through training, or just kind of realized on the job, that kind of changed your life and perspective on mental health?
For me personally, it's been just really eye opening to hear people's stories. That and this is a very self-centered answer to your question, but I think it's appropriate. Speaking for me, I have been impacted recognizing the situations other people are in, and just and not that I compare myself and just am grateful that and know that it could be a lot worse. That's definitely not it, but just to have that human connection to everyone in the world. We go through hard times. We struggle. We have, certain addictions or habits or certain issues in our relationships um, that are just hard. And to recognize how normal that is, in a way, kind of frees my mind up to just live life. It it's gonna be rough sometimes, but
Right.
it's also gonna be extremely beautiful sometimes.
So we're in 2026 right now, as of this recording, and I look back 5, 10 years ago, and the topic of mental health has changed dramatically. I look at, especially, and I'm focused more on the law enforcement, athlete, first responder, military side more so, because and insert type A personality, right, in general, to where we think of mental health as, okay, now we're talking about this, so we're weak for talking about it, or you know um, a lot of the social media stuff is kind of mixed on it, right? It's like, okay, yeah, talk about it, this, that, and the other, or you know you're weak because you are talking about it, like nobody cares, like suck it up and deal with it. um, to be more specific, we're not talking about mental illness here, we're talking about mental health and mental wellness. um, where do you see kind of the trend going? Because I feel like still to this day, like people are still kind of in the box of it's weak to talk about things, or it's still not, a trend, I guess, a trendy thing to do. But what are your feelings on that aspect of kind of where mental health has come from, where it's at right now, and where it's potentially going?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot out there, right? You can't scroll for more than 30 seconds and not come across something that has something to say about mental health. Um, and yeah, I mean, a lot of it's great. Uh, some of it's not. That's just kind of that's the reality of it. Um, but I do think, I mean, it's so obvious that mental health has entered more into the spotlight recently, the last few years. We're talking about it. People are coming out, sharing their personal experiences and struggles with mental health. And I think that does a lot um, to encourage and support and to help people not feel alone in their struggles, definitely. Um, and I think really this is something that, as a whole, I think will improve, society, or at least that's the hope. I mean, we can take a look at, just the focus on physical fitness has been around for a while. There's been exercise and weight loss and diet trends, throughout the last century probably. Um, Mental health is just kind of following behind that, but is still there's some similarities, and I think overall, talking about it, improving access to mental health care, that's going to have huge positive effects. It is difficult to recognize, though, too. The more we talk about it, it seems like the more problems come up, and that's a constant thing that's on my mind. It's just a tough thing to balance. Of talking about anxiety to the general population may be extremely helpful for a handful of people who clinically would qualify for a diagnosis of an anxiety disorder, and then the rest of everybody else, maybe helps them cope with their day-to-day stress. But at the same time, we don't want to spread awareness of mental illness as much as we want to spread awareness of mental health, mental fitness, mental wellness.
Right, and that's kind of where we're trying to find that line, right? And I think that the San Francisco Giants, we just partnered with them. Next Wednesday, we're doing an event with the Sacramento River Cats and the Giants mental skills team. And they have a great slogan of strength is more than physical. And I love that because it's like, okay, yes, you're identifying that. But it's also, we're going to have what's called a mental health and sports night. And the biggest thing is more focus on mental wellness, right? Like, how do we get ahead of the things that we're going through, looking at the feelings wheel, right? Or like all these different things, and like helping kids and athletes or parent, whoever's, shows up, of understanding that if we talk about these things more frequently and we're more open to it, which I'm learning to do, I'm still not anywhere near where I need to be, especially in my own home. But it's like, if we can start the conversation sooner, then we can eliminate some problems later on, kind of like you were talking about with men, right? Like, we wait too long to talk about these things. I know from my personal example, everything had to snowball into an avalanche before, I ended up getting anything that I needed. And so, when if I would have taken it seriously from day one, maybe we wouldn't have been there. But life happens and things happen, and so, I think that the strength is not just physical aspect is a great way to look at it, but also, again, focusing on mental wellness and understanding, like you said, hey, we take it one conversation at a time, and if we're open enough with somebody that's close to us or a therapist or somebody, then we're not dealing with this thing when it becomes a major issue later on. Or hopefully we're not. If we are, then it's mitigated to a minor thing instead of a major thing, which could be extremely helpful. Am I on the right line right there?
That's great. Yeah, strength is more than physical. That's awesome. Um, yeah, just in so many ways, that's great because there is, and as you were talking, it's about it's about finding balance, right? It's about being well-rounded. It's about developing yourself in all areas. There's physical, there's mental, there's emotional, there's intellectual, there's social, right? All of these things contribute to being, the person we want to be. And so I think yeah, it kind of just, yeah, personal, it's development. It's becoming better. I think that's a huge uh, mission for everybody, and it's a great purpose.
One more question before we go to the wrap up here is, what does it actually mean to kind of break this cycle? Not just coping with something, but truly change and break a cycle or a stigma behind something.
Yeah, I mean, first you got to have awareness. You got to recognize what's happening. You got to learn about it. You got to understand, why am I in this situation? Not to then just understand it and then not do anything about it. But then that leads into step number two, is to make changes, to make some progress wherever you can. Right? There's so many different cycles. There's cycles of issues we get into as in our marriages. Recognizing that, increasing our awareness to that, apologizing for our part, for our contributions, probably an important piece of this. That starts then the process of changing. Apologizing really is saying, I recognize what I did wrong and I want to change. And then putting some things into place and taking action. There's cycles we get into of addictive behaviors, going to those unhealthy coping strategies that serve us in some way as an escape, or I mean, really, that's it, as an escape. And number one, recognize those. Increase awareness of, when I'm feeling this way, I tend to want to lean on X, Y, or Z. And these are some things that, these are some negative effects that those things have had in my life. I don't want those anymore. These are some alternative options I can choose. Let's work my way up to, choosing some of those healthier avenues instead of just my instinctual unhealthy tendencies. So,
Love it.
yeah.
What if you had access to a stadium and a setting kind of like we're going to have next week, with a bunch of random people that are there, to most likely are going to come because a celebrity is there. That's the reality behind it. It's kind of the marketing tool as well. But if you had access to it, if you, Tyler Brockbane, had access to this event, what is something that a message that you would want to get across to the group, that they would leave and be like, oh, okay, that's the takeaway for the night.
Number one thing, my message would be, you're going to be all right. It's going to work out. And then in a more practical sense, maybe my message would be, just look around, look inside yourself. If there's some changes that you could make that would make a positive difference in your life or in the life of someone around you, do it. And then do it again. And practice that exercise over and over and over again. I think, in my eyes, the greatest thing that we have, in this life or forever, is to develop ourselves, to change, to become better, to push ourselves. And it's not a linear path. There's ups and downs. And to understand that, to be okay with that, to not get too worked up. You know, if progress isn't happening as quickly as we'd like to, or we feel like we're taking one step forward and two steps back, be patient, keep working. But, you know, really it comes back to, yeah, make those changes that you see, um, and forget about the stuff that you can't change. Well, maybe not forget about it, but just accept it. You know, there's some things you can't change, accept those. There are some things that you can change, accept your agency, your power to do that, and then make it happen.
Why I love that. I appreciate every conversation that we have because I think I learned something different. Again, if you could send me the research for the connecting through activity a little bit, I'd love to read that and push some of that out because I think that men are all about the science. They're all about the facts, right? We want the information. When we're dialing in golf clubs, we want the numbers. We want to know what we should be hitting. We
Yeah.
want to know where the pin's at and all that stuff. And so I think it correlates really well. So I'd appreciate that. But where can people can find you on Instagram, which is where I found you, Greencrest_club, correct? And then
Yes, sir.
where else can they find you? I know you're based in Utah, so any of our Utah people, this is your guy. Get a hold of him. He can practice out of Utah. But we're gonna side note here. We're gonna use Tyler as much as we can too, and get some information from him. And we repost a lot of his stuff just because I believe in it. But if you're in that area or you know somebody that's in that area, how can they get a hold of you, Tyler?
Yeah, Instagram, TikTok is Greencrest Club, website greencrestclub.com. There's my direct email address. Submit a form there. That'll come to me. I do my best responding to DMs and comments. I've been falling behind, but I'll do my best. Yeah, and we are, a side note, we've talked about this, but the hope is to expand Greencrest to other areas. It's really at this point, it's a model that I hope other people can adopt. Not steal from me, hopefully, but I would love to bring this idea and this Greencrest model of golf or therapy in a golf simulator to people everywhere. I get comments every day saying my
Yeah.
dad needs this or my partner needs this. I'm in Chicago or I'm in Miami. So we're working on that. From a business standpoint, that's a process, but I'm aware of that, and I hope to make this accessible for everybody.
Well, I'd love to. I'll chat with you more offline about that because I have a few ideas that I don't want to put out to the world yet. But yeah, I think this model could definitely grow, especially from a business standpoint on that side. But on the therapy side, it's needed and desired, and so I think that there's a lot that can be done there. And I know you have a lot of heavy hitters in your corner that would most likely be willing to help assist in that. So we could talk about that later on. But thank you, Tyler, for your time. I appreciate it. I think that I'm grateful for, like I said, any second I get with you because it's almost therapeutic just listening to you talk. And for those of you guys that are just listening and not watching this, um, one of the things I wanted to point out was the pause between my question and Tyler responding is really cool because if you can't see it, instead of just answering a question, Tyler takes the time to sit and think about that answer first. And I think we can all take some notes from that, it's myself included, because I just say what's off the top of my head many times. But I appreciate you taking those extra seconds to really formulate a response that is meaningful to you, and I see that, so thank you.
Thank you, Matt. That means a lot. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, that'll do it for this episode, guys. Again, go follow Tyler at Greencrest Club on Instagram and TikTok. His website's greencrestclub.com, and we appreciate the support, and hopefully you guys can rally behind Tyler and his mission as well. Have a good night.